is telling us that Elginas Egos Yeradiki, I descended upon the, so to speak, the chariot, this Merkava, into a world that is broken, into a world that is shattered and broken, and filled with all kinds of conflicting things, Tov and Ra, and to somehow assemble one's Emunah in that place. The Merkava means to put the pieces together and to come to a place to find in that world, in that reality that appears on the surface to be Ra, evil, and to be able to assemble Kivyochel, the Elokus, that is contained inside those levushim, those garments of evil. Amar Rabbi Kiva, Lechluch zeh, Rabbi Kiva's words, Lechlucha, Hai Lechlucha, this filth. Lechluch means the filth. Lechluch zeh, Shu Beklipas ha'egos. In the peels, in the shells of the egos, there's filth. This world has terrible filth in it. The filth of evil. Lechluch zeh, Shu Beklipas ha'egos. Lamahu roimeis. Try to do the best you can. This is the rose of the Emunah. This is the sod of faith. In that confusion of Elokim, which is again the multiplicity of Elokim and all of the pieces of this world, and all of the lichluch, the filth of this world, to be able to find that nekuda of Elokus, to find the nekuda of Elokus. And this, of course, is very much connected to the whole life of Rabbi Kiva. Without going into the whole story now, everybody knows. But this was Rabbi Kiva's. He himself came from Gerim, from converts. So to begin with, when he started his life, he had to sort. And the way that he lived, the first part of his life, and what he went through, the war, and then afterwards, the Romans, finally at the end of his life, and the final words when he said, Shema Yisrael Shem Elokeinu Shem Echad, and he said, and he's being tortured to death. And he said, my entire life, I was waiting for this opportunity, I was waiting for this moment. In the deepest evil, in the levushim harachokim b'yoser, to be able to say, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So it's the whole story of Rabbi Kiva, is Elginas Egos Yeraditi. He wasn't a typical yeshiva bacher in Karlu Yungaman, you understand? That's Rabbi Kiva's life. And he was the one, that Akiva Nechamtanu, that was able to give Nechama and Chizik to the others. It was the Indian of Rabbi Kiva. It was the story of Elginas Egos Yeraditi. And the next piece of the Zohar, Kosuv Elginas Egos Yeraditi, Vehemidu Aval Ma Egos Yesh Lo Klipa Misavevis Umachas Al HaMoech Shabo. Just like the walnut, the nut has klipas that surround and cover the moach. The moach means like the marrow, meaning the actual nut food. V'amoach bifnim, the good stuff is bifnim, is inside. Avkar b'chol davar shel kedusha. So it is with all holiness. HaKedusha bifnim. The kedusha is deep inside. But by sitra achra b'chutz. But the other side, the sitra achra, is b'chutz. The sitra achra is outside. The peels, sitra achra. I'm sure many of you remember there's a story that I've told so many times over the years about right now it was the Mittler Rebbe or the Rashab. I think it was the Mittler Rebbe Susi. Yeah, it was the Mittler Rebbe. That so the Alter Rebbe's son, the Mittler Rebbe, he was a big amkan, big amkan in Chassidus and Kabbalah. I'm just going to remind you of the story, but I've said it many times. And he would sit and think. He was a big amkan, and because of that, he often was neglecting. He wouldn't eat and he wouldn't take care of himself. And the Rebbe was always worried about him. And this time, this particular night, the Rebbe prepared for him some good, nice, warm chicken soup, and with lakshan, whatever. And she told the Gabbai to bring it out for him, and she warned the Gabbai to make sure that the Rebbe eats it. So the Gabbai was very scared. The Rebbe's are scary. So the Gabbai brought it out, and the Rebbe, and he brings it over there, and the Rebbe's sitting with a spoon like this, Rebbe's sitting with a spoon like for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and he's looking at the soup, then he's going with the spoon and moving it around. But he's an Atzilus, he's in another universe, another galaxy, and the Gabbai is just standing there, and he knows that the Rebbe is watching to see if he's doing his work, and the Rebbe is sitting looking at the soup like this and moving the spoon around. And finally, the Gabbai can't take it anymore because the soup is getting cold. So finally, the Gabbai goes over to the Rabbi. He says, "Rabbi, if you're looking for the lakshan, it's underneath. It's inside." He thought the Rebbe was like looking for the lakshan. So the middle Rebbe smiled and he said, "Aye. You're right. The lakshan's inside. You have to dig down deeper to get to the good stuff, the lakshan. It's on the outside, and the Guinness egos is lots and lots of peels. You have to dig down deep in order to get to the good stuff. The Zohar says, such a lashon, Kedusha lagoy v'sitra achra lebar. That Kedusha is inside, and the sitra achra, the other side. The sitra achra is on the outside. Even you find that the tzaddikim, especially Rabbi Leiner, who speaks about it in many places, Sikis at Tzaddik, in Machshavas Chorutz, in Pri Tzaddik, in many places. Rabbi speaks about how he brings from his Rabbi, from the Sha'ar and Izhbitz-Radzin, which is based upon the Sefer, that the whole world is Hashem's book. This world is Hashem's Sefer. So we see such a lashon in the Sefer Yitzir, and that the Torah is a perush. The Torah is a perush of this Sefer, the world. And there's the world. Sometimes you open up, you learn a Gemara, or you learn you learn a Taisus, and you can't make heads or tails out of it. And you try to understand what Taisus is saying. You try to understand, or you're learning the Gemara. You try to understand the Gemara. You do your best to try to figure out what is this. And you try with Rashi, and then you look at other Mefarshim, and then you look at Taisus, and look at the Mefarshim, and you try to dig down deep and to understand what's the pshat in the Gemara, to peel away the layers, to get to the lakshan of the sugya, to understand what the Gemara is. And Tzaddik writes how in many places that the whole world is a sefer. He even says such a thing. I recall, I don't remember where he said this, but he says such a murdik lashon he uses, Reb Tzaddik. He says that when we sit down tonight to the Suda Shabbos, the meal, he says the Suda Shabbos is a siyum for Hashem creating the world. In other words, Hashem's book is the world. Hashem finished his book by Shabbos, right? By Chal Elokim, by Yom HaShvi. It's called Malach Devesher also. So when we have this festive Shabbos meal, in a certain way, it's a siyum of Hashem finishing his book. It's Hashem's siyum. Hashem finished creation. And every week, it's again a hasiyum. Hashem finished creation by Shabbos. So when we eat Shabbos, we're eating by Hashem's siyum of finishing the world, which is his book. Our job is to figure out this book. Is to try to understand what's the pshat in this Taisus. What's the pshat in this Gemara?
It's not only ate by a siyum, right?
Yeah, the Baba Saldi, there were tzaddikim that only ate by siyum, right? By finishing a sefer. They need Hashem's sefer. That this world is Hashem's Baruch sefer. And we were sent to learn this sefer, to try to understand this sefer to the best of our ability. And the rose of the Emunah is that, and the Rabbi is going to say in a second that at times I can't understand it, and then you just sit back and you say and it's okay. Maybe there's a greater person that can help you with the Gemara, and if that greater person can help you with the Gemara, then it's left and we say, take Tishbi Taretz Kushi Savayis. but I believe in the kedusha of the Gemara, and I don't understand this Gemara. And then, as they say in the yeshivas and Shabbos, you don't die from a kasha, as long as you believe in the truth of the Sefer of the book. You don't die from a kasha. You say, I don't get it, and you're allowed to say, I don't get it. I don't understand. And that's what the Zohar Kodesh is talking about. This Sefer of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem's Baruch Sefer. Lahachzios atzmo latov, lahachzios atzmo latov. To pull oneself, to always pull oneself back to the tov, to belief in Hashem's goodness, and to that tov, to try to see the goodness in that terrible filth, that luchluch of this world. Well, obviously, that's not just talking about evil. It's just talking about evil, which we're seeing plenty of lately. It's not just about evil. Like we were talking about the kids about the Chanukah Mesilas, and the children were talking about. Naturally, they start talking about what happened in Australia, and this tzaddik, this Chabad shliach. The daughter was telling us that she read that there was some prisoner, a guy that was in jail. And that this Chabad shliach in Australia would go 4 hours traveling to go give him chizuk. I think his name is Eli Schleiger, the shliach that was killed. And so the kids were saying, so how could it be that such a thing happened? How could it be? How could there be such a rishus that a father and a son? This was a team. His Rishonim was a father and a son. I don't know. I think they were Pakistanis, right? Father and a son. This is the Henoch that he gave his son. The father and the son went and killing people, and and for the children so they're already 2 generations removed from what my parents saw, and I remember asking the same questions when I was growing up. Asking my father the same thing, and my mother the same thing, sitting at a Shabbos table or at a Hanukkah table. And how could it be such a thing? How could it be? And that somebody that's so good, and people that's innocent people, and how could it be? And then you look at the faces because it's terrible because everybody looks at the faces of these Rishonim that are marching everywhere in the world and to see the riches and how could it be they don't understand? You have in America people that are politicians and television people or commentators. There are a few of these now on the right that they became the misgalas, such anti-Semites. They talk like Nazis, mamish, and the children never saw this. They heard about it, but they read about it like it was old. They heard it like it was old mice, from many years ago. Now, to see that Hashem is taking us into the klipas, to the ginas ha'egos yiradnu. These last couple of years, ginas ha'egos yiradnu. My granddaughter is asking me, why is it that Jews are killed on October 7th, that babies are being burned, and so then why are the goyim angry at us? It's a good kasha. Before we even did anything, it's not like then they were able to say because it's genocide and genocide. No, we didn't do anything. It was October 8th, and they're already screaming and yelling and going nuts. So my granddaughter asked me, what are they angry? What do they have with us? Because we got killed, they're upset with us. They have a time that we got killed. So I said, no, the time is that not enough were killed. That's the time. The time is that the job isn't finished. They want to finish the job. So it's very hard for our children. They were raised, in a much lighter world. Yeah, they heard about what happened, the World Trade Towers, different things, But they were raised, and it wasn't close to them, it wasn't near to them. I was with one of my grandchildren that I had to go give a talk someplace last year. I went to give a talk, and I'm very, very rarely in Manhattan, but I went to give in her school. There's a Beis Yaakov, there's a Manhattan school. And I went to give, and I was working with one of the kids, 2 blocks apart someplace, and I went 2 blocks away, and there was I think maybe Hunter College is over there. I don't know. And they were marching on the cafes, and they started to yell at me. Working with my grandmother, started to yell at me, and I walked right through the middle of them, and then walk around, and she's saying, why do they hate us? What did I ever? She said, little girl, what did I ever do to them? Why do they hate us? She's saying, we're now walking Alginas Egos Yiradnu. That's it. That's what Shlomo was saying. We're descending into the Ginas Egos. And not to take out from here to become frightened by the Ra. I mentioned last night by the Leiner by Chabad, what the Pizesna said, that not to be afraid. The Pizesna lived in such a place. He's not to be afraid. He says that pachad, fear, he says, should not weaken a person to be in a scary place. The purpose of that is la'oireres koiches and their domim, how to awaken within oneself the koiches inside of you, and the pride that you have that you're a Jew. The koiches and the domim, the slumbering, sleeping koiches that a Jew has, are awakened by the evil that we see, and then how we're good. How we're good. That shliach in Sydney, his father taught him to go traveling 4 hours to say a kind word to some guy in jail. That's what his father taught him. And this guy's father taught him to shoot, to kill innocent people. And to be more proud. And we see that that's happening. Except among those Jews who are so lost that they always begin the sentence by saying, as a Jew. You know, the ones that, as a Jew, I know that this is genocide in Gaza. As a Jew, I could say, all of these embarrassed Jews. But the ones who are taking out from inside the klipas, are taking out the pride of being Jewish, the greatness, the privilege of being a Jew. That's Aginas Egos Yeradati. Look at the note Yud on page Yud Zayin from the Gershon Henoch. The Fragmented Chanuchi is also from the Rabbi of Gershon Henoch from Radzin, the author of our Sefer. There's Pirushim on the parishes in the Zohar Kodesh. So he says, but the Fragmented Chanuchi kosev Rabbeinu levar divrei Zohar Kodesh. So there, Rabbi Gershon Henoch speaks about this piece of the Zohar. Sha'idei she'adam ro'eh sheyesh ra ba'olam, that when a person sees that there's evil in the world, misbainin she'Hashem is bara mitzido rak tov. He thinks about, but the truth is that everything Hashem is created is for the purpose of good. When you're looking at this Ra, but everything Hashem Baruch Hu created is Ra, Tov. Ultimately is Tov. The Gam HaRa Hu l'tachlis HaTov. That even the Ra is for the tachlis of Tov. V'yizbayin shekol ma shenira shehu Ra, and a person has to think about this. And to be misbainin that kol ma shenira shehu Ra, everything that appears to be Ra, evil, l'zbayin mena roimus Hashem Yisbarach, to find the roimus, the greatness of Hashem. Shehister oro, that Hashem has covered and concealed His light. B'mokom rochok kazeh, that Hashem has covered and concealed His light. B'mokom rochok kazeh, in such a distant place, because this is horrible. In such a distant mokom rochok kazeh, migodol chazdo, but it all comes migodol chazdo, because of His loving kindness, because of His great love. That's hard. That's called Emunah. That's Shema Yisrael Shem HaKadosh Shem Echad. That underneath is Elokim, which is a lot, and all of this stuff, it's Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's hard. Chadis Medrash, next page on the note. It says in the Medrash Rabbah Parshas Kisavuk, Mi Godel HaGanev HaNignav. Hashem Kivyachol is compared to somebody from who's being like mugged. He's being held up. Or Hashem knows or Hashem is like somebody who somebody stole from him, and he knows who it is that stole. And despite the fact that something wrong was done to him, he doesn't start screaming and yelling, he's silent. Going from Emunah b'shaisek. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu's silence, when there's Ra, when there's evil. The silence is something which is very, very hard for us. But Hashem decided to cover himself and to conceal his ultimate will of what he wants with this world and with each one of us in our lives. Levushim ka'elim, and these levushim, these garments, and these coverings. On the surface, meaning by the levush that you're looking at, it looks like this levush, this garment, is the opposite of what Hashem wants in the world. Hashem is good, and Hashem wants everything good. But the levush that you're looking at is the opposite of that. Mainly is bainin chasdei Hashem, but through sort of being jarred by that ugliness, by that filth, a person has to be mizbainin chasdei Hashem. Shekol kach rotze lahetiv ViYesod, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the ultimate good for us, sheyotzio or mitoch hachayshech, which is to extract the or of Hashem and His love, even mitoch hachayshech. That's the locutions deep inside the choshech, the darkness. I kan l'shem kodesh. Ein kosev Rabbeinu b'teferes HaChenuchi, and the Rabbi writes also in Parshas Bo, b'zeh l'shanim. Ha'inyan b'zeh, ki odom tzorech l'dazo, so a person has to know this. Shebemes ha'shorish kol davar mitzad Hashem Yisbarach, that the root of all that exists is Hashem. Hu tov. Hashem Yisbarach rak tov. That deep inside, everything is tov. And everything is for the purpose of tov. I'll call ma'aseh b'reishis kama pa'amim. Ve'ar Hashem ki tov, v'hinei tov ma'od. It says by creation. Hashem says, and every single part of creation, Hashem says, tov. Tov ma'od. And Chazal saying that, tov ma'od is ra. The Satan, the Yitzhar, is tov ma'od. Chen tzarech l'dash yesh levush l'ra. Yesh levush ra. One has to know that there's the garment, the levush is ra. Shenidmeshu ra mitzad habruim. Mitzad habruim, from our perspective, this is ra. This is what we're looking at is the klipas egos. Achein harahu rak mitzad habruim. However, that ra is mitzad habruim, is from our perspective. And we do our best to break through that and to try to find the tov. Kodesh is gala tachlis atov shebechol davar, to be able to find the tachlis atov shebechol davar. V'hara hu k'moshe nimtza b'shas salka daitach. So you see that he uses this marshal also. The ra is like when you're learning a sugi in the Gemara, and the Gemara has a salka daitach. In other words, there's a havamim in the Gemara before the Gemara gets to the maskana, and you're in the salka daitach. How would I translate salka daitach? Havamina. You're in the. Everyone knows what it is.
Initial thought.
Huh?
Initial thought.
The initial thought, or the supposition, maybe, of the Gemara. The salka daitach, amina. Even the word Amin is like Emunah, right? What I first thought. So you're in that place of the Sakadaitach in the Gemara. And when you're in the Sakadaitach, like you're saying, if you close the Gemara, you say, this makes no sense at all. I don't know what this is. Mm-hmm. It's the Sakadaitach. Sheina Libedamis. The Sakadaitach, the supposition of what maybe it is, but in the end, it's not. But the Sakadaitach is confusing. And the feeling is it's Eina Libedamis. This is simply false. This makes no sense at all. But what's the purpose of all the Sakadaitas? And our way of that the nations of the world can't understand, because there's no other book like our book, like the Gemara. Where else do you have such a thing? Nobody sits down to study math, or to study biology, and there's a kasaka daitach. No, the book is just there to tell you this is the Metzias. There's no kasaka daitachs. The whole Torah is in such a way, and the same way that's how it is in the Gemara. That's the world. That's Hashem's Gemara. It's Hashem's Gemara. Sometimes in Hashem's Gemara you have a tough sugya. Right? You let's say you worked very, very hard for 10, 15, 20 years to build up a marriage, and the marriage, God forbid, falls apart. And you're sitting there in your house by yourself, because it's your ex-wife's turn to have the kids, and you're sitting in a house where there used to be children laughing and playing, and in a house where there used to be a Shabbos table, and now you're sitting there by yourself at a Shabbos table singing Kari B'Nailam. There's nobody there except you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and some pictures on the wall of how it used to be. And that's a hard sugya. That's a hard Gemara. It's a hard Gemara. And that's Hashem's Sefer. Now, there's going to come a point in time, maybe after this world, after one's life, or when Mashiach comes, where it's going to be Kamash Malan. Kamash Malan. This is the Pshat. This is the Pshat. Kamash Malan. But it's so fascinating. Fascinating is a silly word. It's not a Jewish word. It's Gevaldi. That Hashem Yisbarach made our education is an education that's the Gemara. That's what we breathe. We breathe the Gemara. And the whole way of learning Gemara, which people can't understand. This is the strangest way to learn. And it bothers them because the Jewish people are the most creative, intelligent people on earth. So how does that work? Why don't they just get straight to the point? Why don't you get straight to the point? I mean, just get straight to the halacha. What's the whole derech halimud? The whole seder of Am Yisrael is being nurtured and this way of thinking, because the Gemara is a reflection or a perush on Hashem's Sefer, and Hashem's Sefer is the world, and the world is filled with kasaka daita and havaminas. Sometimes you understand Kamashmalan, sometimes you leave it and you say, take it. I don't understand. And there are unresolved Gemaras. But a mammon knows that even if I don't understand this Gemara, there's somebody else that does. And even if nobody understands this Gemara, we all will at some point. And that the Gemara is true. And that it's emes. And Hashem Baruch teaches us in this way. The Jewish people are raised in such a way. None of the la'asachem l'chol goy u'mishpatim ba'yidam la'asachem l'chol goy. They don't have such a way of studying. To them, it's if you bring a guy into a medrash, to them it's the most bizarre thing. Jews sitting around and screaming and yelling at each other, and they're yelling at each other for 7 or 8 hours, and the whole thing was wrong. Both of them are wrong. Because what? Because the Shiva comes over and says, And he asked the Rosh Yeshiva, says the pshat. He said, that's the pshat. And there were 70 hours. Why don't you just ask the Rosh Yeshiva right away? What's the pshat in the Gemara? But all of us know there's nothing that's more delicious on earth. And that's how we live. The whole world is a Gemara. With Rashi and Taisus and Mashah, Pnei Yeshuas, Kivegas. And there are some people, they get very, very impatient with the Gemara. And it's not, can't be sorry for it. What's the Rabbi saying? But through the Salkadaitach, it's because, and even when the story of Am Yisrael is the Haggadah, and even the Haggadah is beginning only with kashas. In other words, the night of Pesach is called the night of Emunah, right? That's more Mechadash Emunah. So then, just straight to the point. No. Man nishtana layla zeh, kol halaylos, echad miyadei. The whole way that his galus of Emunah is a way of kashas and terutzim, questions and answers. He says, because if they see his galam of karam akuvik kamashma, because through that a person fights and wades through all of the kashas to get to the hamakuvan, what the intention was, kamashmalan. This is what Hashem is coming to tell you. Because when you're faced with all of these possible wrong answers, wrong approaches, suppositions, and havaminas, that other Rabbi, when you work through all of that and you come to the maskana, it's something which becomes a part of who you are, deep inside of you, that you worked for, that you worked through that Gemara, not just that the information was thrown at you. And that's why the Jewish people are an Am Chacham B'Navan, and Hashem gave us the way to learn the world and to learn a Gemara. And your own life, how to learn your own life, like a sugi in the Gemara. Your own life, like this guy in Hebel sitting by himself Shabbos. Your own life is a Gemara. Like I told you about the tzaddik who all of a sudden found out that he lost everything. His whole business was destroyed. Lodge. His whole business was destroyed. And someone asked him the Gemara. They didn't know. They got a telegram that his whole business went down the river, the Lodge of, and Eli Chaim Eisels. He was a very rich man. He owned the lumber factories, and everything was. There was a terrible storm, and everything was destroyed. And they got a telegram came to the Kehillah. They had a telegram, and they didn't know how they're going to break the news to the Rav that everything that he has is gone. He went from being one of the richest Jews in Poland, he had nothing. So there was a very, very smart baruch in the yeshiva, and they said to the baruch, the Rebbe loves you, tell him. They chickened out. They gave the baruch, you tell him. Here's the telegram, you tell the Rebbe, because the Rebbe was giving a shiur. So after the shiur, the baruch said, Rebbe, I have a question on a Gemara. He brought up the Gemara. The Gemara says that right? The same way you have to make a bracha to thank Hashem for the good in your life. You have to thank Hashem to say bracha dynamis. When something bad happens, somebody died, you say a bracha too. So he said, what's the pshat? He asked the Rebbe, what's the pshat? He goes, what's the pshat in Gemara? The pshat is that even if something bad happens, he says, the bracha said, Rebbe, could that be that even if something terrible happens, that a person is supposed to thank Hashem? So the Rebbe said, that's what the Gemara says. That's what we do. So he said, for instance, everybody knows that the Rebbe's entire business was being brought down the river, and let's say Chas v'Shalom, that there was a storm, and the Rebbe's entire life, all of his life savings went down the river. The Rebbe would say a bracha, be thankful to God, and the Lord Rav said, if Chalila such a thing happened, of course, that's what the Gemara says. That's the pshat. So the kid took out the telegram and said, okay, yeah, and the Lord Rav passed out. Remember the story? He passed out. He read the telegram, and everyone was coming there and whatever. And when he opened his eyes, he said, "It's Taka Shvei Gemara. It's a hard Gemara. It's a hard Gemara." You can say pshat in the Gemara when it's theoretical, but when God forbid it's the time to make a bracha dynamis, it's Taka Shvei Gemara. It's a hard Gemara. It's a hard Gemara. There are easier Gemaras, no harder Gemaras. There are easier times in life, and there are harder times in life. That's what he's saying. But this is what Hashem wants. Even the Averis that we do are part of those peels. And the purpose and the point is to get through that and to find a deeper person inside of that and to do tshuva and to become a greater person than ever before. In other words, even the ra that you did in your life is all for the purpose of tov, for you to do tshuva and to come back to Hashem in a way that you never ever came. You were never so close to Him. To get a higher level. In other words, the avera that you did, you actually did. God forbid the avera. But that's the kasal tag. That's the HaEmuna of who you are. And the maskana is, I'm better than ever before. That's true. I'm better than I ever was. That's true. I'm closer to Hashem than I ever was. That's the maskana of your avera. If you don't do tshuva, it's like closing the Gemara before you get to the... It's like giving up on the Gemara. Then because that what you ended up is, even in the hester of your own life and your own mistakes, you find Hashem in the hester of your own mistakes. Why did you even do that avera? What was that whole inyan that you went through in your life? It was only for the purpose of getting closer to Kodesh Baruch. When you come to a place where you realize that even that was all the tov of Hashem, even the mistakes that you made was part of Hashem's tov. You are a God who is so concealed, who is so hidden. Elokei Yisrael. It's our God. Elokei Yisrael. And the whole world can't figure out how is it that we still hold on to Him. It's such a hard Gemara, and the sugya of Am Yisrael is such a hard sugya. And all of our enemies that had infinitely easier sugyas than us, they're all gone. They all gave up. They're finished. And here we are still holding on to the Gemara. It's an amazing thing. Holding on to the Gemara. Hashem's world. That we're still in the world. And the whole world has done everything they can to try to erase us from Hashem's Sefer. They're all erased. And Yamach Shemam, and they're all going to be erased. The enemies. They're all going to be erased. And here we are. And we're still holding Hashem's book. And we're still in the story. Their story is all history. It's already old business. All the ones who tried to kill us, it's in museums. It's in the history books. Am Yisrael Chai. And here we are alive, holding on to the Gemara, still doing the same things we do. And we've done. And they can't accept this. They can't accept this. So all the eniklach of the Rishayim, of Haman, and of Amalek, and all the rest of these Rishayim, and all of them cannot understand how is it they can continue to be part of the story when everything else was erased, and all of history tried to erase them like they're trying now. It's the same way by the Harabayas. All they tried to do is to erase everything, any evidence that there's a Beis Hamikdash on the place where soon there's going to be the third Beis Hamikdash is going to come down from Shammai in that place, and they're all going to be standing there shaking their heads, and then Hashem is going to say, bye-bye. I mean, they're good ones, a couple. They'll have a chelik in the type, but for Carlson Tucker and Candace Owens and the rest of that chabura, and together with all the Rishayim that they love, they'll be bye-bye. But they'll be zoche to see. They'll be zoche to see. To see the maskan of the Gemara, but then it's going to be bye-bye. And the good ones will be zoche to stick around long.